All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the rapidly intensifying crisis between India and Pakistan. We're talking about a situation that has just exploded, quite literally, from a single event to a full-blown international standoff in a matter of days. So where does this all kick off? Well, it starts with a single dramatic event. The place, Delhi, India's capital. The time, a Monday evening, November 10th, 2025. And just like that, a powerful explosion shatters the evening calm in a crowded area near the historic Red Fort. The initial reports, as you can imagine, are just chaos. But pretty soon, a grim picture starts to form. At least 9 people are dead, an act of violence that puts the entire country on high alert, instantly. Now, as investigators swarm the scene, they realize this wasn't just any bombing. Now, the evidence starts pointing to something much more specific and, frankly, much more chilling. A Fedayeen attack. That's a type of suicide mission where the attacker's one and only goal is to cause maximum damage. They have zero expectation of getting out alive. So that's the big question, right? Is this the work of a single radicalized person acting alone? Or is this just the opening shot in a much larger coordinated game? Okay, let's really get into it and start peeling back the layers behind this blast. You can bet the Indian government's reaction was fast, and it was crystal clear. They didn't hesitate for a second in framing what this was, and the words they chose would really set the tone for everything that was about to happen. So as the dust settles, the first key facts start trickling in. The weapon was a Hyundai car, and it was packed with ammonium nitrate, a pretty common but very deadly explosive. And the location near the Red Fort, that was no accident. It was picked to cause maximum chaos in a really busy area. These aren't just details, they're clues. And here's the official language they used, coming straight from the Indian Union Cabinet, calling it a heinous terrorist incident by anti-national forces. That immediately signals a zero-tolerance response. This wasn't just a statement. It was basically a declaration that they were going to find not just who did this, but who was behind them. And it didn't take long for the investigation to zero in on one person, a Dr. Umar Un Nabi. Now, this is a doctor from Kashmir who was already on the radar. He was linked to a recently busted terror cell of Jaish-e-Mohammad. You'll know them as JEM, a very well-known terror group based out of Pakistan. Suddenly, the picture was getting a lot clearer and a lot more worrying. Okay, and this is absolutely crucial to understand. This attack did not just come out of the blue. Far from it. Intelligence reports almost immediately suggested this wasn't the start of the violence. It was retaliation. It was payback for a major Indian military operation from months before. When you lay out the timeline, you can see this deadly tit-for-tat cycle just snapping into place. See, it all started back in April 2025 with a terror attack in Bahawalpur, Kashmir. India's response in May was huge and direct, Operation Sindoor. And that leads us right here to November, with the Delhi blast being seen as the inevitable counterpunch from JEM. So let's really dig into Operation Sindoor. What was it? Well, after that Pahalgam attack, India didn't just sit back. They launched missile strikes aimed directly at the headquarters of Jaish-e-Mohammad in Bahawalpur, Pakistan. Reports say those strikes killed family members of the group's leader, Masood Azhar. So the effect was twofold. Yeah, it was a heavy blow to JM's leadership, but it also pretty much guaranteed the group would regroup and come looking for revenge. All right, but the story doesn't stop there. It gets a whole lot more complicated because now we've got to talk about the international angle. This thing starts pulling in other regional powers and old rivalries. And then things took a turn. The trail didn't just lead to Pakistan. All of a sudden, Indian media, citing intel sources, were claiming the handlers for the Delhi terror cell were based in, get this, Turkey and Afghanistan. And even more, they said the prime suspect, Dr. Nabi, had actually traveled to Turkey to plan the whole thing. As you can imagine, Turkey's response was, well, it was fast and it was angry. The Turkish embassy in India put out a statement calling the whole thing purely disinformative and said there was zero factual basis for it. A really strong denial trying to shut it all down immediately. But you have to see these accusations in the bigger picture, right? This is all happening on a massive geopolitical chessboard. India has been actively trying to counter the growing defense partnership between Turkey and Pakistan. And how are they doing it? By getting closer with Turkey's rivals, like Greece and Armenia, countries that have their own long-standing issues with Ankara. It's a classic game of strategic balancing. But that cycle of revenge we talked about, it was far from over. The response to the Delhi blast came, and it came fast. The violence was about to spill right back across the border. The very next day, not even 24 hours after the Delhi explosion, bam! The crisis escalates again. This time the target is Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan. And this one was even deadlier. A suicide bomber strikes, and at least 12 people are killed. This just poured gasoline on an already raging fire, pushing both countries even closer to the brink. And what happens next? Well, exactly what you'd expect. The blame game starts, and it starts hard. Pakistan's prime minister comes out and publicly blames Indian state terrorism for the Islamabad bombing. And India, they flat out rejected the charge. The war of words was now just as fierce as the actual violence. But just when you think it's a straightforward case of India versus Pakistan, a curveball. While the two governments are pointing fingers, a completely different group claims they did it. Not an Indian proxy, but Jamaat-ul-Ahrar, which is a splinter group of the Pakistani Taliban, the TTP, and they're known to operate out of Afghanistan. So now you have yet another player in this incredibly tangled web. Okay, so let's take a step back. What does this all mean? Let's zoom out and look at the whole terrifying picture here, because this is why this matters to everyone. What we've just walked through is this incredibly fast, four-step climb up a ladder you do not want to be on. It starts with a regional terror attack that leads to direct military action from a nation-state, which then provokes a revenge attack in their capital, followed almost instantly by another deadly attack in the other country's capital. And that right there is the bottom line. This isn't just some regional dispute. We're talking about two nuclear-armed powers locked in this dangerous spiral. And every single step up that ladder brings them closer to a much wider, much more devastating conflict that would have unthinkable consequences. Which leaves all of us with a really chilling final thought. In a cycle like this, where accusations of state sponsorship are flying from both sides and the attacks and retaliation are happening this fast, where does the line get drawn between a proxy conflict and all-out war? And maybe more importantly, who gets to draw it?